All right, we're going to be moving to agenda item number 7, which is approval of meeting minutes. So agenda item number 7, we're going to be any possible discussion and or just approval of the October 16 to 2024 meeting minutes. I'd like to ask the board for a motion.
Move approval.
I'll second it.
Second. At this point in time, I'd like to ask the moderator if there's any comments on this motion.
This is the moderator. I wanted to first check, are there any members of the public present in the room? Are there any members of the public present in the room?
No.
Okay. If that changes, please let me know. We always check that first, and then I will open up for public comment in WebEx.
Will do. Thank you.
Yes. And any member of the public who wishes to comment, please either raise your hand or you may enter comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. All right, I'm not seeing any raised hands. So, Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. It has been moved and second to approve the October 26, 2024 board meeting minutes. Sophia, can you call a roll call vote?
Yes. President Anderson.
Yes.
Vice President Finley.
Yes.
Board Member Tingen.
Here.
Board Member Paxson.
Yes.
Board Member Mendenhall.
Here. Yes.
Board
Yes.
Member Tengen would like to change his vote from here to
Sorry.
yes.
And Board Member Bindal. The motion passes with a 6-0 vote.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 8, which is we're being joined by Lucy Correa. Let me know if I'm saying that correctly.
That's correct.
Correa?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. With the California Department of Pesticide Regulation, online to provide their update. So at this point in time, I'll turn it over to you, Lucy.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, members of the Structural Pest Control Board. My name is Lucy Correa. I am a senior environmental scientist with the Department of Pesticide Regulation, which I will be referring to as DPR. I'm with their enforcement headquarters branch, and I'm here to provide the DPR update for the board. So to start, planning has begun for this year's structural regulatory training, which will be hosted in Northern California, tentatively scheduled for the month of October. In the spring, staff from the DPR enforcement branches, in conjunction with the Structural Pest Control Board, will convene a work group to develop this year's training. And then next, in December of 2024, DPR issued enforcement letter 24-20 regarding the revision of Food and Agriculture Code, section 12978.7, Assembly Bill 2552. Effective January 1st, 2025, most uses of the first generation anticoagulant rodenticide, chlorofenazine, and warfarin were prohibited. And our department has issued this letter to provide guidance to the county agricultural commissioners on the implementation of these changes. Additionally, enforcement letter 24-15 and 24-16 were issued in November 2024. These letters were to announce the amendments to Title 16, California Code of Regulations, Section 1970 and 1970.4, to include the additions of sections 1970.41 through 1970.43. Specifically, the changes were made to the structural fumigation log, the pesticide use record keeping requirements, and the pre and post notice requirements respectively. And lastly, some personnel updates. Our director, Julie Henderson, retired from her role effective January 2025. Following her retirement, Governor Newsom has appointed Dr. Karen Morrison as the new director for DPR. Director Morrison has been with the department since 2018 and was serving in her most recent role as DPR's Chief Deputy Director of Science and Advisors. And that concludes our update for DPR.
Thank you very much, Lucy. At this point in time, I'll ask the moderator if there's any public comments that would like to be made on this agenda item.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I'm not seeing any requests for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 9 is the Structural Pest Control Board Research Advisory Panel. At this point in time, we'll discuss and take possible action regarding the panel's recommended proposed topics of research and requests for proposals for the board research fund contract. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to our Structural Pest Control Board lead investigator to present.
Oh,
There you go.
can you hear me very well?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, well, good afternoon, board members. I'm Tom and Eichen with the Structural Pest Control Board, and I'll be giving you this update, the Research Advisory Panel. So there was a memo provided. You should have that in your packet of material. And first want to mention that President Anderson had appointed new members to the Research Advisory Panel prior to the meeting that they held. She appointed those members on June 18th, which consists of board member Ann Kerr-Bindal, Tony Visner from DPR, Department of Pesticide Regulation, Bernard Lewis from UC Berkeley, Darren Van Steenwyck from he's a regional entomologist from Spray Pest Solutions, and then Ashley Freeman of Advanced IPM. So according to regulations, the Research Advisory Panel consists of a 5-member panel to establish criteria that research proposals must meet for recommendation to the board and consider topics for soliciting requests for proposals for research contracts funded by the board. So that's what I'll be going over with you. I'm just going to highlight some of the issues that occurred with the meeting. On December 3rd, they met to consider the solicitation request proposals and establish the criteria that those proposals must meet, and so that they can provide recommendations to the board for this. The research committee, panel, reviewed the prior recommendations that were in the proposed regulations, the proposal regulations, and they created the new criteria for to basically address the focus research on new studies and treatment of integrated pest management for the following pests: ants, cockroaches, and termites. Within that framework, they were providing information, or the proposals that need to be considered shall include original innovative research on new procedures, processes, practices, or programs. And additionally, researchers must be based in California with a demonstrated history of scientific research. They will then, in creating that criteria, their RAP recommends establishing the following minimum qualifications for the proposals. That be that the principal project director and key participants have prior scientific research, knowledge, and experience with relevance to the proposal. Proposers and individual researchers must include a summary of a minimum of 3 prior peer-reviewed search projects. Proposers must provide the name, title, address, and telephone numbers of a reference relevant to the above referenced projects. And proposers must demonstrate that the projects were completed within the allotted timeframe, and if not, provide an explanation. So beyond the recommendations that the 2018 solicitation requests have been amended with additional changes. You should have in your packet the attached 2018 solicitation request with track changes for these new recommended revisions for the board to approve. And then the action that's requested is that you approve the research advisory panel's recommended updates to the 2018 solicitation request, and then establish the proposed minimum qualifications as outlined in the track changes. So you can refer to that in your material, and that should be something you can consider.
Thank you so much, Tom.
Thank you.
At this point in time, I'd like to ask the board for a motion to approve.
Move
I
to
would like
approve.
to make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Moderator, could we check in with the public to see if anybody has any comments on this motion?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. It has been moved and second to approve the Research Advisory Panel's recommendation updates to the 2018 solicitation request for research proposals, including the focus on IPM for structural pests and the proposed minimum qualifications as outlined in the track changes document. Sophia, can you take a roll call vote?
President Anderson,
Yes.
Vice President Finley,
Yes.
Board Member Bindal, Board Member Bindal,
This is the moderator. I see that Bindal is still logged into the meeting, but he is muted.
okay. Board Member Mendenhall,
Yes.
Board Member Paxson,
Yes.
Board Member Tingan.
Yes.
We have a 5-0 vote and the motion passes.
Thank you so much.
I'll stay here. I'm on the next one.
Oh, okay. Can't get rid of you yet, Tom, right?
Yeah, sorry.
All right, so we'll move on to agenda item number 10, which is the Structural Pest Control Board Technical Advisory Committee update. Back over to you, Tom.
Thank you. And again, thank you, board. I will update you on this item, which is the Technical Advisory Committee. And as mentioned before, a new committee was established here by President Anderson. This committee I'm very proud of. It's 10 members on there consisting of John Tangen. He's a board member. Les Johnson from Cortiva Agriscience. Ed Hernandez from Insistex. Jeremy Davis from BASF Corporation. Andrew Sutherland from the UC IPM program. Dr. Chow Yang Lee from UCR, California Riverside, and Vice President of Thrasher Pest Control, Garrett Thrasher, Darren Van Steenwyk from Prague Pest Solutions, Todd Beeden from Terminex, and Beth Boss from Department of Pesticide Regulation. Pretty outstanding committee there. So this committee was appointed initially to establish and deal with issues relating to bait stations. We held our first meeting December 4th and discussed the issues that it was tasked to address regarding how current laws and regulations affect the use of monitoring and bait stations, and how the changes and developments of these products and recent work research have affected the industry and the need for clarification of proper recommendations for treatment of subterranean and Formosan termites. So the committee met and we discussed a lot of topics, a lot of issues, obviously around the base stations and the monitoring stations, mainly focusing on the fact that they have not kept pace. The laws and regulations have not kept pace with science and the use of these products. We also discussed the need to address the confusion in the industry regarding their liability concerns and how to make proper recommendations regarding the use of these products. So we broke this down into 4 different categories from our meeting. In the materials that we provided in this memo, I listed in each of these categories some of the highlighted areas, and I'm only going to touch base on some of them because obviously there's a need to kind of read through these and understand them. The 4 basic areas we broke it down into were the need for clarification and definitions, the need for clear laws, regulations, and proper recommendations, and then identified issues with bait stations and with the monitoring devices. And then the 4th category in the memo is regarding action items that we plan to take regarding the next meeting. So just highlighting some of the issues for the need for clarification, talked about a lack of alignment with the laws and regulations, basically causing confusion for the industry, and that the Technical Advisory Committee feels that they need to address these things. Definitions for a structure and infestation. We feel the law is not real clear on that and that needs some updating. Define what constitutes a structure and how far out from a structure is still considered part of it, or the ability to make recommendations for treatment within that structure. Consider splitting the definition into infestation into evidence within the structure and evidence outside the structure. Consider defining pre-construction and post-construction. Consider the difference between control and extermination in terms of current and future infestations. Propose 3 different kinds of applications for recommendation, meaning the use of bait, extermination, control, and prevention. And that's for the needs for clarification and definitions, the need for the changes in laws or regulations and proper recommendations. Some of the highlights there were clear information and definitions are needed regarding bait stations installed around the perimeter versus the above ground bait station. The fact that current law is unclear about whether the licensee can recommend a treatment for subterranean infestation within a foot or 18 inches from the exterior perimeter of this structure. EPA already has an approved definition of structure, which can be used as a template. You'll see that outlined in our Action 5 item. Challenges arise in defining structures such as tree houses, structures built on property lines. And there should be some language about removing subterranean termite tubes at the conclusion of treatment when using an above ground station. In regards to the bait stations themselves, one mention was brought up that we've already had bait stations existing for 30 years. So Centricon's been around for that long. Obviously still don't have laws to address it. Many other states and countries have implemented the use of bait as a regular part of their extermination process. Some recent studies show that these baits are considered superior to liquid treatments. And even though the industry does want the option to use the bait for termite control, some PCOs may prefer liquid treatments. Monitoring devices don't contain a pesticide or a bait product. The use of these monitoring stations may require inspections and notices of completion according to current laws, and determine if installing monitoring systems constitutes the need for an inspection and notice of completion. So just to summarize all of that and what eventually with more meetings we'll be providing recommendations, but I would highly encourage you to kind of start looking at some of these laws and regulations and how this is affecting the use of these products. As we begin to delve into more definitions and try to categorize that for you and bring recommendations, we'll obviously want to make sure that you're well versed on that. And then the action item that we had in regards to future meetings is to start with comparing the definition of a structure with the proposed definitions of use in pesticide labels and begin to prepare a draft for the next TAC meeting, and then to be able to provide that to you. And then the next steps is that we will continue to meet and research these issues and try to outline and prioritize them for discussion and possible recommendations.
Thank you. And I want to take this time to thank all of the individuals involved with the panel and the committee. I know that all of these clarifications and updates are, seemingly small in some areas, but really are going to make a huge impact. So really thank you all and everybody that's involved to be able to make up, especially this new committee, to make sure that we are on track in terms of trends, but really at the core of safety for our consumers. So really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. And so while this this agenda item is not up for a vote, I do want to take an opportunity to turn it over to our moderator to see if there's any public comments on this agenda item.
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. I am displaying directions and will give you a moment. All right, I am seeing no requests for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. I want to check in with the board at this point in time and see if anybody had any questions or comments, additional comments.
I just wanted to say thank you, Tom, so much for being here in person, heading both of these committees. Do we have there's not really, and not that we need it, but like a timeline? Like, these are great things that you guys brought up. Like, I love seeing all of these, and that you guys are working on those. Do we have, like, when's the next meeting? What's the timeline? Is it something over the next 2 years we're addressing these things? What does that look like?
I hope that within the next few months, we'll schedule the next set of meetings based on everybody's availability. But I would imagine for maybe every board meeting or every other board meeting, I'd like to at least have some, maybe recommendations that could go forward. The industry is very much chomping at the bit to have these. I think that one of the things the board really needs to be aware of is that the sustainable pest management issues that DPR is undergoing right now, the mandate by the state of California to begin to eliminate or remove active ingredient products from the availability and use for the tools for pest control companies. I think it's important that we have this on track so that it can be used properly and the laws can align with it. The industry is changing a lot with the use of these products, the baits, and I think there's a lot of confusion with what they can and can't do. So I think it is important. But yeah, I would hope that we will continue to have regular meetings and bring recommendations for us that the board can vote on.
Awesome. Okay. So we'll plan on hearing updates at the board meetings, get updates and knock some of these items off the list, basically.
Yeah, the research advisory panel won't be as often as the technical advisory. Obviously, that would be something that is a slower pace, but I think that hopefully we'll be having some regular meetings with the TAC so that we can get something on the table for you guys as soon as possible. So,
awesome. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, agenda item number 11 is consideration of and possible action on comments received regarding proposed regulations to amend sections 1936, 1936.2, 1948, and 1997 of Title 16 of the CCR fees. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to our executive officer to present.
Hi. I'll refer to, there's a memo in your packets that contain a detailed, all of the comments that we received during the public comment period, as well as a summary on the memo of those comments. And just for a little bit of a background, at the August 2024 meeting, the board approved regulatory changes to examination, license, renewal, and WDO activity fees. The rulemaking package was submitted at the end of December. It was published in January, and the public comment period closed on February 24th, 2025. We received 11 comments, primarily opposing the increase in WDO activity reporting fees. The commenters suggested that increasing enforcement against unlicensed activity would be a better revenue solution. Others questioned the transparency of the board's financial situation and the necessity of the fee increases. While there is some acknowledgement of the need for higher fees from the commenters, most of the 11 commenters would like the board to reconsider the increases, particularly the WDO activity reporting fee. However, staff recommends moving forward as proposed. The board operates as a special fund entity and is facing a structural budget deficit. Most license and renewal fees are already being raised to their statutory maximums, and the increase in WDO fees is necessary to maintain board operations. Additionally, comments suggesting enforcement as an alternative revenue source are not viable, as fines are unpredictable and cannot replace a stable funding stream. Ultimately, failing to act now would jeopardize the board's financial stability, leading to service reductions and delays. Staff recommends rejecting the comments and proceeding with the regulatory action as proposed. Are there any questions?
I just had a question on, I know former board member Thrasher had brought up in regards to increasing fees on branch two instead of just branch 3. It seems like branch 3 is always, gone after. Let's just raise the price on branch 3 and will increase the revenue. Were those options looked into, or what?
They were. So we have a statutory maximum on how much we can increase our fees. And right now I'm going to the maximum that law allows me to go to with regulations. We are looking into, and this was brought up at the last meeting in October, I was directed to go back and actually put together some sort of legislative proposal, do a fee study, see what we need to put those statutory maximums at so that it can be a little bit more spread out, just really analyze what our options are. That is being done. Unfortunately, I don't have that ledge proposal ready for the board right now. It's something that I plan to submit for a recommendation in our sunset report. So once we get that increase in legislation, then I have a little bit more wiggle room to increase in regulations, if that makes sense. I hope.
Yes, that makes sense. Yes.
So I'm going to the maximum that I can go to with it when it comes to the branch 2. Now, increasing the WDO, unfortunately, is necessary in order to make up the additional revenue that we need to make up.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean that, who knows, in the future, maybe what happens is once it's more balanced, if that's the way that the board wants to go, maybe the WDO can come down at that time.
Okay.
It has happened.
All right. Thank you.
There is, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
There is a motion on the memorandum. There are options on the memorandum. On the last page of the memo, page 6 of the memo, option A or option B, if you needed some direction on that motion.
I'll ask the board for a motion.
To approve the recommended changes. Sorry, I'll move to approve the recommended changes. Okay, I'll read it exactly as written. Attorney I move to direct staff to proceed as recommended to reject the comments as specified and provide the responses to the comments as indicated in this memorandum.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Moderator, can we check in with our public and see if there are any comments from the public?
Thank you. I've opened up the question and answer panel, and if any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Any additional comments for the board before we proceed? Okay, it has been moved and seconded to approve the proposed motion from the memorandum in the meeting materials. Sophia, can you take a roll call vote?
Yes. President Anderson,
Yes.
Vice President Finley,
No.
Board Member Tingen,
Yes.
Board Member Paxson,
Yes.
Board Member Mendenhall,
Yes.
and Board Member Bindal.
Yes.
With a 5-1 vote, the motion passes.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item 13, discussion and possible action to reconsider previously approved text and to consider initiation of a rulemaking to amend regulations at sections 1940, 1940.1, 1941, and 1942 of Title 16 of the California Code of Regulations Examinations. Oh, apologies. Okay.
They're the same.
All right. Agenda item 12, regulations. Agenda item 12 is review, discussion, and possible action to ratify, amend regulations at sections 1936, 1936.2, 1948, and 1997 of Title 16 of the California Code of Regulations fees. And I'll turn it back over to our executive officer, Sophia.
Thank you. This is the same regulatory package we were just talking about. So now it's coming back to the board. What happened was in August of 2024, the board approved this language. There were non-substantive changes made to, more specifically, it was to the license applications that are in this regulatory package. Although they were non-substantive, we felt it was best to ratify the language, bring it back to the board, and have you vote on it again. I did list out the changes there for each license type. I'm sorry, for each application. And again, it's minor things, typos that we found, words that we changed and whatnot. So the motion is at the bottom of the memo if you guys need assistance with that.
I'll ask the board for a motion.
I'll move for the board to approve the proposed regulatory text for sections 1936, 1936.2, 1948, and 1997 as presented in attachment A. Direct staff to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking process, including the filing of the final rulemaking package with the Office of Administrative Law. Authorize the executive officer to make any additional non-substantive changes to the proposed regulations before completing the rulemaking process, and adopt the proposed amendments to sections 1936, 1936.2, 1948, and 1997 with the non-substantive amendments discussed and approved at this meeting.
I will second that.
Any questions from the board? Moderator, could we open up comments from our public?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. And before we conclude, are there any additional comments from the board? All right, it has been moved and seconded to approve the proposed motion from the memorandum in the meeting materials. Sophia, can you take a roll call vote?
Yes. President Anderson,
Yes.
Vice President Finley,
Yes.
Board Member Tingan,
Yes.
Board Member Paxson,
Yes.
Board Member Mendenhall,
Yes.
and Board Member Bindal.
Yes.
With a 6-0 vote, the motion passes.
Thank you. All right, and a little bit of deja vu for everybody. Agenda item 13, discussion and possible action to reconsider previously approved text and to consider initiation of a rulemaking to amend regulations at sections 1940, 1940.1, 1941, and 1942 of Title 16 of the California Code of Regulations examinations. And I'll turn it back over to our executive officer to present.
Thank you. So this is the examinations language that we're outlining our examination process and regulation. It's also meeting federal EPA standards. You voted on this language in August of 2024. The package has been moving along. However, we realized that we incorporated by reference in the language the federal EPA standards. And the materials at the August meeting did not have that language attached. So what we're doing today is not slowing down the process, just wanted to reiterate that, but we would like to get a vote, include the language this time, and proceed with moving forward with this package. And the motion is at the end of this memo, the recommended motion.
So you're asking us to make a motion to rescind the board's prior text approval?
There are two options. We are actually recommending.
I believe
I
it's
think they're
option A.
They're both worded this.
If no suggested changes, is up to me.
Yeah.
Yes, my apologies. Option A.
Somebody else's turn to make a motion.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to rescind the board's prior text approval for this item from August 2024 and instead approve the proposed regulatory text as presented in the meeting materials and attachments A and B and submit the approved text to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency for review. And if no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive, substantive changes to the text and the package, and set the matter for a hearing if requested. If after the 45-day public comment period, no adverse comments are received and no public hearings is requested, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adapt the proposed regulations, including the document incorporated by reference as noted for 16 CCR sections 1940, 1940.1, 1941, and 1942.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Any questions from the board? Moderator, could we ask the public if they have any comments on this motion?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Any additional comments from the board before we continue? Okay. It has been moved and seconded to approve the proposed motion from the memorandum in the meeting materials. Sophia, can you take a roll call vote?
Yes. Board President Anderson,
Yes.
Vice President Finley,
Yes.
Board Member Tingen,
Yes.
Board Member Paxton,
Yes.
Board Member Mendenhall,
Yes.
and Board Member Bindall.
Yes.
With a 6-0 vote, the motion passes.
We'll now move on to agenda item 14, which is the executive officer's report, and we'll turn it back over to our executive officer one last time to present.
Thank you. In the materials is the fund conditions, the budget, where it stands. I'm actually going to turn over just subsection A, which is the budget update, to Ryan Harrington, who is online. And he is our budget analyst over at DCA's budget office.
Good afternoon, moderator. May I ask you kindly to add Suzanne Balkus to the panelists, please?
Sure. She's been added.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Harrington, and I'm a budget analyst with the DCA budget office. And I'm also here with my manager, Suzanne Balkus. I want to thank the board and the executive staff for allowing me a few minutes to present on agenda item 14A, the board's expenditure, projections, and fund condition statement. For the first page we'll go over is the board's expenditures, which is page 80 or 97 on the document. These projections are based on actual data through fiscal month 6 for the 0775 support fund. This report includes 23-24 actual expenditures in green, as well as 24-25 budgeted and projected expenditures in blue and orange, which also includes a budget allocation breakdown. Over this 2-year period, costs are slightly higher. As we move to the end of the document, you'll see that the board has a beginning base budget of approximately $6.8 million and is projected to expend approximately $5.7 million, creating a reversion to the board's fund of $1.1 million. The next document I'll be going over is the board's revenue projection, which is either page 73 or 96 of your document. This report includes receipts collected through December. I'll go further into the projections as we transition to the next slide. Okay. Bear with me 1 second. Okay, so as you can see on the document, up until December, our year to date is roughly about 2.8 million. And we're projected to do a year end of about 5.6 million. And current reimbursements are still at negligible levels. They're below 1,000, so we're just tracking those. Next, we're going to be moving on to the fund condition statement, which is either page 78 or 95 of your document. The left column is the board's prior year 23-24 actuals. It shows the board began 23-24 with a beginning balance of over 3.2 million, collected roughly 5.5 million in revenues. Of that, 679,000 from initial license fees, 250,000 from license renewals, about 4.6 million from the issuance of citations, fines, and delinquent fees, and other revenue. The board expended approximately 6.2 million, which includes 567,000 in direct draws to the fund for statewide pro rata and pension payments. The board ended 23-24 with 2.6 million in reserve balance, or about 4.9 months in reserve. For the current year, the board projected revenues of just over 5.6 million with $699,000 projected from initial license fees, $269,000 from renewal fees, and a little over $4.6 million from the issuance of citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenue. The board's 24-25 expenditures based on FM6 projections is just over $6.3 million between authorized expenditures and direct draws to the fund, leaving the board with a fund balance of $1.9 million or 3.2 months in reserve. Next, we'll go over is the board expenditures for the 0399 Education and Enforcement Fund, which is on page number 83 or 100 of your document. These projections are based on actual data through fiscal month 6. As we move to the end of the document, you'll see the board has a beginning base budget of approximately $314,000 and is projected to spend $314,000, creating a revision to the board's fund of $0. Next document I'll be going over is the board's revenue projections for the same fund, which is on page 82 or 99 of your document. As of right now, the current fund is projected to do about $515,000. As of year to date, they're at $239,000 roughly. The last slide for 0399 is on page 81 or 98 of your documents. This is going to be a fund condition statement. As a reminder, we read this document top to bottom and left to right. The left column is the board's prior year 23-24 actuals. It shows the board began 23-24 with a beginning balance of over 1.7 million, collected roughly 507,000 in revenues, with 425,000 from other regulatory fees, and about 82,000 from income from surplus money investments. The board expended 331,000, which includes 17,000 in direct draws for the fund for statewide pro rata and pension payments. The board ended 23-24 with 1.9 million in reserve balance for about 68.7 months in reserve. For the current year, the board projected revenues are 514,000 with 431,000 from other regulatory fees, about 83,000 from income from surplus money investments. The board's 24-25 expenditures based on FM6 projections is just over 330,000 between authorized expenditures and direct draws to the fund, leaving the board with a fund balance of about 2.1 million or 73.6 months in reserve. Lastly, we'll go over the 0168 fund, which is your research fund. It is on page 86 or 103 of your documents. For the fund, the board had a beginning base budget of approximately 3,000, is projected to spend approximately 86,000. The next document is going to be the revenue projections for the fund. It's either on page 85 or 102 of your documents. Currently, right now, year to date, we have the fund collecting about $100,000, and we have them projected to do about $217,000 by the end of the fiscal year. The last slide for 0168 is on page 84 or 101 of your document, meeting materials, and is the fund condition statement. As a reminder, we read this document top to bottom and left to right. The left column is the board's prior year 23-24 actuals. It shows the board began 23-24 with a beginning balance of 984,000. It collected roughly 213,000 in revenues, with 164,000 from other regulatory fees and 49,000 from income from surplus money investments. The board expended $0. The board ended 23-24 with approximately 1.2 million in reserve balance. For the current year, the board projected revenues of 217,000 with 167,000 coming from other regulatory fees and 50,000 coming from income from surplus money investments. The board's 24-25 expenditures based on FM6 projections is just over 86,000, leaving the board fund with a balance of 1.3 million. The budget office will continue to monitor the board revenue and expenditures for all three funds and report back to the board with monthly expenditure projections as we continue to close fiscal months in the current year. A few things to note on the board's fund condition statement. The fund condition statement is a snapshot in time. One of the main driving factors expenditure increases in future years is a result of personnel service adjustments. These include general salary increases as well as employee compensation and retirement rate adjustments. The budget office includes a conservative ongoing 3% increase to expenditures on the fund condition statement to account for these ongoing incremental adjustments. Lastly, I would like to note the board that any future legislation or unanticipated events could result in the board's need for additional resources, which could create cost pressure on the fund. The budget office will continue to monitor the board's fund condition statement and keep the line of communication with the executive staff open for any future needs or expectations. Again, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to present today's meeting, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ryan and Susan. I believe we have one question.
I want to go back to the analysis of fund condition for the structural pest control fund, which is on page 78 in my packet. And just confirm that, because I feel like we've seen this presented in a different way before in terms of differences between what was budgeted and what was actually spent, and frequently the pest control board would spend less than what was budgeted, which makes things look a little bit better. But the way I read this is actual expenditures for the last fiscal year were about $600,000 more than actual revenues. Is that correct?
That is correct. And you're talking about 23-24. So yes, that's correct.
And for current year, while it's not over, if current expenditures continue, it's basically going to be right around the same amount, a little over $700,000 or a little less than $700,000 more in expenditures than revenues.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. So on the item that we talked about with respect to the fees and the changes in the regulations, while I'm sympathetic to members of the industry that are concerned about increased fees, this is exactly why the fees need to increase, because no organization can exist with a $700,000 deficit every year. Thanks.
Sophia, did you have any additional items?
On my executive officer's report, I do.
Okay.
Thank you, Ryan and Suzanne.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
We have, I have on the memo item B as the strategic plan update, 2023 to 2028 strategic plan objectives update. So since our last update in August of 2024, I'm pleased to report that we've made significant progress with our strategic plan goals. Attachment 2 in the materials goes over all of the goal areas. And over the past 6 months, goal area number 1, which is licensing, examinations, and CE, continuing education, has increased from 42% to 50% completed. Goal area number 2, which is enforcement, has increased from 65% completed to 69% completed. Area number 3, legislation, regulations, and policy, has increased from 51% over the last 6 months to 65%. And area 4, outreach and communications, has gone from 88% completed to 90%. And area number 5, organizational effectiveness, has gone from 81% to 86% completed. I think we have an average of about 73%, something like that, overall completed with our strategic plan, and considering that this goes through the end of 2028, we're right on track, if not better than on track. This progress is a direct result of the dedication and work and collaboration of all of the staff. And so just want to take a moment to acknowledge them and all of their efforts. Thank you. And legislation. So I received the legislative summary a few days ago. I myself have not had a chance to really go through the bills in front of you in the material. They are 5 bills that are going to affect the department as a whole, which includes the boards and bureaus. There's a status in the material of where they are right now, a summary. I've also attached the actual language as it is currently, and I plan to have a more detailed analysis for you at the next meeting, and whether or not we want to support any or just kind of watch them go through or oppose any. And that concludes my executive officer's report.
Thank you. Does the board have any other questions or comments? Moderator, could we ask the public if we have any comments on this agenda item?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. And thank you once again, Sophia. And thank you. I know I can speak for all of us for your leadership, as well as you recognize your staff and everybody. This is incredible work. And I think these goals and where we're at is really a testament to that. So thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to agenda item 15, licensing update. At this point in time, I'll turn it over to Melissa Zanetta, Chief of Licensing and Admin, to present.
Thank you. Melissa Zanetta, Chief of Licensing. Yeah.
You can move it.
Can you hear me? Okay. Melissa Zanetta, Chief of Licensing and Administration. Hello, Board President and members. I'm going to provide you an update for licensing.
Sorry, I think you're still maybe not catching the microphone.
Can you? There we go.
So
can you hear me now?
There we go.
Okay. Oh, that's better. I can hear myself now. So in the board materials, you will see there's a licensing statistics report. There are no real significant trends or concerns to this report at this time. Does anybody have any questions on anything in that report? Okay. So I'm going to move on to the licensing unit satisfaction survey. We're definitely getting a lot more participation now that it's moved online. We received 47 survey responses from October 1st to December 31st. The survey did reveal that 91.49% of respondents were very satisfied or satisfied with their interactions during the licensing and company registration process. There's some feedback in here as well. Feedback highlighted positive staff interactions and professionalism with requests for improved processing times, enhanced phone support, and expanded online services. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay. My next update is the Connect implementation. So we are still actively transitioning to our new online licensing system that rolled out in May 21st, 2024. We now have transitioned the processes for exam, re-exam, company registration, branch office registration, And our newest implementation was initial license applications. So looking ahead, we are going to be adding to that the wood destroying organism online payments and reporting, transfer of employments, change of addresses, and license renewals. So at this point, we're just kind of further developing those functionalities, and we'll slowly introduce those as the time goes by. I do want to take a moment to just thank the industry, for any industry members that are listening, for your patience as we continue this effort. It's definitely been a long, drawn-out process, and it continues for a while, but we'll get there in the end. It's going to be beautiful. So just thank you for your patience. It doesn't come without, little issues here and there. So does anybody have any questions on the Connect rollout? Yes.
Board Member Mendenhall. So when I'm using Connect, and so we have our applicators, and then they move into FR2, FR3, they take their license and pass. One of the questions on there is you're asking us to upload the live scan, which I don't have. I mean, they may have taken the applicator 3 years ago. It's something you guys would have on file. That's difficult. I basically just tell the guys to go get it again, but that's another $70, $80 out of my pocket.
Yeah,
to get
no,
that.
They definitely do not need to do it again. If they already licensed, just have them mark no. We're working on that piece of functionality. Right now, there's no validation for Connect to know that they're currently licensed.
Yeah, I didn't know if it's like currently licensed or something like that.
Yes.
There can be there.
We're working on that.
If it does, I can't remember if it allows us to move forward with that.
Just mark
Or
no.
Mark no, and they'll still
Mark
let us
that they
to
do the
submit.
Yes, it will allow you to submit.
Okay.
It's just going to pop up a message that says you must do this before you're licensed. But if they're already licensed, they're not
Okay.
required.
I couldn't remember if it allowed me to submit or not, so.
It should,
So,
but if
okay.
it doesn't, let me know
I'm
for
sure it does.
sure. It should, because if you mark no, you're just going to get a little pop-up that says
Okay.
you must do this before we can issue a license.
Okay.
And then it should allow them to proceed and submit. But yeah, that's something that's in the works. We have to kind of do little by little, and some of it just doesn't complete the whole process for everybody, because there's still little pieces that have to be developed in there.
Okay.
And unfortunately, that's one of them.
Okay.
So as a workaround, just submit no, and we'll know that they've already
Then they'll
done
get
it
there.
because
Okay.
they're licensed.
'Cause
We
I
just need that validation in there to be able to, for the system to confirm that, yes, they are in fact licensed, so they don't need it. But that'll come eventually. Yeah.
What,
But thank you for that, because that's good for the industry to know. Just check that no and then bypass it.
what makes it difficult is the developer, the contract, who we have the contract with. They are not only putting us on the new Connect system, but quite a few other boards. And so when it comes to the little bugs and fixes that we need, sometimes they don't get immediate attention. We just have to kind of wait, and they're trying to iron out so many other things. So,
Not bugs, just want to make sure.
Right.
that,
No.
They can get their licensing, because field reps kind of important for a lot of different things. that
Exactly. Yep.
Companies do.
Maybe we can come up with some sort of messaging, put it out there that if they have fingerprints on file and they have an existing license.
Yeah.
So that's something that Melissa and I can, thank you for bringing it up. So we'll try and get some outreach out there on that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I just had a question back to the licensing unit satisfaction survey.
Mhm.
Was there any questions on there that got, I mean, we're highlighting like 91.49%, we're very satisfied or satisfied. Was there any questions, specific questions to the test that scored really, really low that we're addressing or that we need to address?
No, not really. There was 100% of respondents reported being treated with courtesy and respect by staff. And then 93.48% found the guidance and assistance provided by the licensing unit to be effective. That final question, the last question, is just asking for feedback.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were those okay, I just didn't know if there was any specific, like, I haven't filled out a survey yet. Were there any on the specific questions of like, the test questions were fair and whatever, on questions like that? Were there any like specific questions like that that scored low that we need to look into or address, or everything seemed great?
I mean, there was definitely comments, and I kind of summarized it a little bit where the feedback highlighted, and they want to see improved processing times. That's a big one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is kind of what we're doing. You know, we're in the transition to Connect,
Yeah.
which as we transition, our processing time has gotten better. But then, of course, when little bugs come up and we got to wait for Inlumen to fix things, you know, that kind of delays it. And, you know, it's when we hit the busy season, any little delays there affect the industry. So we do our best, you know,
Okay.
to try and avoid that, get things pushed through as quickly as possible. But sometimes our hands are tied when it comes to the developers. And like Sophia has said, they're actually developing 5 other boards software.
Okay.
So it's not just us. That's
Yeah, I just like on, yeah, and the only reason I brought it up, just like on surveys, I love seeing like, hey, where are we doing really, really well? And then,
Yeah.
hey, are there a couple items that we need to,
Yeah.
focus on to improve? And so
Yep.
just want to make sure we're addressing both sides of that.
Yes,
So,
so is processing time, enhanced phone support, and expanded online services.
okay,
The phone support, we transitioned to Teams in the last couple years, I think it was. What year? Yeah, a couple of years, I think we've been on Teams. It seems like it was just yesterday, but the phone tree's a lot different. It's also better in a way because you have so many different options to get directly to where you want to go. But at the same time, it's a little bit different than our typical phone system that we had. Sometimes if you don't know what you're calling for, if you don't do the right selection, it's going to take you to the wrong place and potentially you have to be transferred. So things like that. And then they said expanded online services. So those were the 3 items that we pointed out that they wanted to see change.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And
which
a lot of
online
it will be
services
addressed in the
get
sunset
there.
reviews anyways, yeah. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes. Any other questions?
Melissa, under looking ahead, as we look at all of these other items that are being addressed, and I know there's other boards that are receiving the same support right now and getting that rolled out, but is there a timeline associated to those, or is it like every other chunk takes X amount of time, or it just depends on the complexity of each?
I wish I had a good timeline.
Okay.
I don't. We are getting ready to go into an additional 2 years contract. So I would say within the next 2 years from November, I mean, I would imagine, but that really depends. We may, you know, eventually have to break off in another contract to optimize certain features that we would like changed or enhancements, because enhancements often fall in new items, so it's a new ask. So in the end, if we have further things that we want to develop after contract, then we'll have to probably get a separate contract, or possibly even sooner if we want things to move a little faster. So it's hard to say what the timeline is, but our contract is, you know, we can extend it for 2 years. So that's kind of what we're looking at right now. And I'm sure we'll definitely use the full 2 years.
Okay. And I would imagine, you know, for things like just change of address requests, maybe it's a little bit smaller, but for those items that maybe have significant impacts, are we then maybe prioritizing those in terms of that communication and outreach, or how are we sharing some of those enhancements?
Yeah, so definitely when it comes to WDO specifically, there's going to be a whole outreach, or there is a whole outreach plan for that, because that's a big component. And it's very different than our legacy WDO system. So we'll need to do a lot of outreach for that to make sure that the branch 3 companies and industry are aware of how it will work and know what to do before we even go live. So that will definitely be something that we really, really do outreach on. WDO is kind of a big piece of the project. It has definitely taken priority, but it's also something that may last through the end of the contract, because it's just that kind of project. It's a very customized project. It's not an out of the box like everything else is. So they're having to really customize our system for that, to fit it in there and make it work. So.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions from the board before we ask our public? Okay, moderator, could we check in with the public to see if there are any comments on this agenda item?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 15, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. All right, we're moving on to agenda item 16, enforcement update. I'll turn it over to Holly Glassner, lead of enforcement, to present.
Okay, how's that? Oh, yeah, that's good. I'm going to try to be quick. Madam President, board members, I'm Holly. I'm the lead of the enforcement analysts here in Sacramento at headquarters. I don't have a ton of significant trends for the first couple of quarters for this fiscal year. I did want to point out a couple different things that the enforcement analysts at the desk level have been implementing. The first being the workers' compensation insurance audit, or the workers' comp audit. We worked with licensing in order to gather a list of branch one companies specifically. That's where we started. Branch one companies that were showing no workers' comp, expired workers' comp, or they were showing that they were not expired. What is it when they exempt? Thank you. My brain just went. We opened up 67 desk investigations for these companies specifically at the first month of the new fiscal year. So in July, 63% of those investigations were closed with compliance at the desk investigation level, which is great. Most of it was, didn't know I needed to send that in, done, processed. Out of the 67, I want to say 37%, there's maybe 17, I think, total that went out into the field, where the special investigators then went to the offices and gained compliance. So I thought that was a good use of our resource. This was around the time when we had brand new analysts in the office, and it was a really good lesson in processing complaints. So that was nice. And then December of 2024, we actually partnered with the WDO task force. We're auditing branch 3 licensees with missing or overdue WDO report or activity filings. So both WDO reporting and notices of work completed. The WDO unit was able to generate a list of companies that hadn't had anything on file between specific dates. And from that list, we're taking, let's say, 10 at a time for each analyst, doing research. This is a little more research heavy before we contact the companies, find out when the last filings were, if they've got a balance on their account, if the company is in the process of closing. If we find that it looks like they're still working, still have insurance, still have workers' compensation, all of that, we then will contact them via email, letter, phone, to see if we can help them get up to date with their WDO filings. So far, again, like with the workers' comp audit, I have noticed that people are either just transitioning people, new office staff that don't know that they have to or need to or how to file their WDOs. It's been pretty successful. I've had a couple of companies that were in the process of closing and just hadn't gotten all of that done yet. I've had to send out the special investigators to the field, but not very often. It seems like we're getting good compliance so far. So, and then the last thing I was going to talk about was our customer satisfaction survey. I wanted to let the board know, I don't know if you guys know, unlike with licensing, we don't have our survey attached to all of our emails. Our surveys are only sent out when a complaint case is closed. Currently, it's desk investigations open. Once they're closed, we will then send a link out to that consumer if they provided an email address. So when you look on the second page of the memo, for example, our surveys, we sent out 30 and only received 6 responses. So it doesn't feel like that's a lot, but it's actually kind of a nice number. we're going to maybe do some work on getting a couple different surveys created for not just consumer complaint, but also ones that could possibly go to the company as well. That probably will be with next strategic plan. Yeah.
Or fiscal year. We'll
Yeah.
look at July 1.
And that's all. We are also going to be on the Connect system that Melissa was just talking about right now. We're just going to be doing our complaint form online. It's been created with the other 5 boards that are all going on to the new Connect system. We all created a complaint form that worked with all 5 boards, but then we all got individual sections where we could state, like, I need the date that escrow closed, or this. We should probably have that up and running for consumers within a couple months. But again, we're kind of on that back end of asks. We're wanting to change a little bit of the wording on some questions. So I'll let you all know when that happens. And that's it. Do you guys have any questions? Did you see anything on this that you had questions on? No? All right. Thank you, guys.
Oh, Holly, if you can just wait just one moment, just in case the public has any questions. Moderator, could we ask the public if we have any comments on this agenda item?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public has any comments on agenda item 16, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll move on to agenda item 17, outreach and communication update. We'll turn it over to Christina Jackson Duran, Administrative Analyst, to present.
Hello, good afternoon. So I'm here, Christina Jackson Duran, with the admin unit. Today I'm here to present to you the
Christina, could you get a little bit closer to the mic? Sorry.
the board's outreach and communication update and efforts. So first we'll start with the email communication. Since our last board meeting, we've added 46 new subscribers to our mailing list, bringing our subscriber list to 840. Staff continuously encourage industry or those who are interested in receiving updates from the board, encouraging them to subscribe so they can receive those updates as well. Moving on to social media. In your board materials, I provided the account and content statistics report for all social media platforms. If you have any questions about that, I can take those after this update. Next up, we have Spin, which is our newsletter. Last year, we did publish 2 newsletters, but we did briefly pause due to the rollout of the new online Connect system, just for some added support while we transitioned. But we have resumed our efforts, so we're back up and running and expected to have a new newsletter release at the end of April. Lastly, in your memo, we also provided a list of speaking engagements that staff have attended since our last meeting. I would like to also add one that did not make it to the list, as the event happened after the board materials were prepared. On February 26th, the board was invited and attended the Department of Pesticide Regulation IPM Achievement Awards ceremony and networking event. Lead Special Investigator Tom Meniken and Investigator Jeff Meringue and myself were in attendance at this event. And the event included stakeholders from across the state who all play a role in achieving the state's goal of a wide-scale transition to sustainable pest management by 2050. And then at our booth, we were able to provide resources to those stakeholders and have conversations with them as well in our role in and efforts in promoting sustainable pest management practices. So with that, if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Okay, I'll go ahead and open it up. Moderator, could we ask the public if they have any comments on this agenda item?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 17, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower left-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we're going to be moving on to agenda item 18, review and possible approval of SPCB DEI Supplemental Strategic Plan. For this agenda item, I'll turn it over to DCA Solid Planning Solutions to present. Welcome.
Hi, hello. I'm Sari Rani from Solid Planning. And I also have my co-facilitator with me,
Elizabeth Cornell.
All right, let me get into the WebEx because I got a presentation. Hopefully you can all see it okay from.
Yeah, we can see it great.
Perfect. All right. So like we introduced ourselves, Sari Rani and Elizabeth Cornell. What we're going to be doing today, this is a little bit different than some of our other DI supplementals. Our plan's already drafted and we're going to have you review some of the updates that staff made and also give you an opportunity to add additional stuff or make adjustments if you'd like. And today what we're going to do is Elizabeth and I are going to act as a neutral party. We're going to be providing structure for the meeting today and documenting any discussion that happens. We do ask that for this, you do try to minimize distractions, respect one another's contributions, and we do ask that everyone do try to participate with this. That does look like a very big agenda, but I promise you it won't be. It's not as lengthy as it seems to be. We're going to watch a couple diversity, equity, and inclusion training videos. Our first one's about 20 minutes long, and then we have a much shorter 2-minute one afterwards. This is part of your DI training as board members as well. So this is what that opportunity for that. We'll give a very, very brief purpose of what strategic planning is and why we're doing this and why we're adding the DI supplement to the process. We'll quickly, you should have gotten the environmental scan with your board meeting materials. We'll quickly look that over and then Elizabeth and I will pull up that amended strategic plan with the staff edits and then we'll get approval on all those edits. All right, so at this point, I'm gonna pass presenter back to our lovely WebEx moderator and she will get the videos started for us.
All right, hold on just a moment. We have to do a little bit more adjustments for the videos. So thank you for your patience as we do this.
Hi, my name is Lisa Bacon. Training manager.
Sorry, 1 second, the video's not showing.
Yes, that is true. I am making adjustments before I share it. So just.
No worries,
yes.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
With the Department of Consumer Affairs Solid Training and Planning Solutions team. I'm excited to bring today's training video about diversity, equity, and inclusion, also known as DEI, to all of you. My training experience in DEI goes back to 2015 across multiple departments, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to support DCA's DEI efforts. What does DEI mean? That's the title of today's training video and is truly reflective of what we will cover. The training content was collaboratively built using resources, research, and training with the goal to further our understanding of this important topic. This training video will provide a foundation of the general concepts, understanding, and importance of DEI. The Solid team is honored and excited to be a part of DCA's DEI initiatives, and we will continue to expand our commitment to DEI through both training and learning. I'm also proud to share this year, every Solid trainer will be DEI certified, and more DEI trainings are on the horizon. I expect this will only be the beginning of exciting things to come for DCA. So now, let's get into it. What does DEI mean? Our learning objectives for this training will be to understand what diversity means and who it relates to, why it's necessary to choose equity versus equality. We'll discuss the benefits reflected in our work culture when we practice inclusion, and I'll share several examples of how to integrate DEI. I think it's important to mention this training's alignment with our mission statement, which is to advance a diverse, equitable, and inclusive California Department of Consumer Affairs for all. To understand diversity, we first need to define what it means. Diversity is all the characteristics and experiences which define each of us as individuals and the groups to which we belong. Often there's a mindset which associates diversity with only individuals who fall under the protected classes. Diversity is relevant and inclusive of every human being based on each aspect of our lives. We're multi-dimensional beings, which makes us diversely unique. Race and ethnicity are frequently misunderstood. People don't always recognize or identify themselves with one simplistic and usually limited category listed on a demographic questionnaire. To shed some light on this, here are the definitions. Race is biological and refers to groups of people often based on physical characteristics such as the color of their skin. Ethnicity is a broader term than race, and it's your cultural identity. It's chosen or learned from your culture and family experiences, such as a certain custom, traditions, and languages you've been exposed to within the group you feel you belong. Someone might say their race is Black, yet they associate their ethnicity with Portuguese. Or another person might say their race is white and their ethnicity is Irish. I'm a fan of this diversity iceberg because I feel it's a good representation of human diversity. Above the waterline, we can only see about 20 to 30% of an iceberg. The other 70 to 80% is below the surface. When we first interact with someone, there are features we can quickly identify in a short amount of time, such as their body language, an accent when they speak, possibly their gender, and how they're dressed. But these only represent very limited and sometimes inaccurate characteristics of the person. There are numerous layers and dimensions to who we really are, such as our education, sexual orientation, work ethic, strengths, life experiences, and personality traits. And it's impossible to identify these core attributes within a person until we've invested the time to find out. And this is when unconscious bias comes into play, above the surface, when our brains quickly respond to a person or group of people simply based on limited external perceptions. Our brain is biologically wired to rapidly intake information all around us to determine our safety. It's the mechanism which activates our fight or flight response. This is also known as implicit bias. It's an unconscious response and inherent to all humans. We're exposed to influences from an early age based on our environment. Our family, education from schools, community, television, movies, marketing, and one of the most powerful influences in our culture today is social media. Because of these unconscious influences, our brains begin to form stereotypes about the society around us. People who look or act a certain way are categorized in our minds based on these mental intakes. Have you ever had that gut feeling when you've been around someone for 5 seconds? It's important to listen to our intuition, but this becomes a problem when we have a strong reaction to someone based on very limited information. We want to trust that feeling and sometimes revere it as a superpower, but we need to make sure we pause and ask ourselves truthfully what prompted those feelings. This is why unconscious bias tends to have a negative connotation. It is how our brains work, but we have to hold ourselves accountable for how we respond, especially when it's based on an unfair judgment. If we're brave enough to ask and listen to how we've impacted the people around us, we can become more aware of our own biases and reprogram our brain's response system. Viktor Frankl says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Now I want to talk about the E in DEI and the difference between equality versus equity. Equality happens when we provide the same, equal treatment to everyone, and it can feel fair. When we choose to give equity, we create pathways to equal outcomes by recognizing that some people and communities have unequal starting points. This picture reflects what it looks like when we give everyone equal resources. Our intentions may be good, but when we check in and ask people how they're doing, we'll find out not everyone was able to participate. If we check in with people first and find out what they need, it levels the playing field for everyone to succeed. Equality is often related to what most of us know as the golden rule. Treat others the way that you want to be treated. But what you need to succeed can look very different from the people around you. Equity is a verb and a choice. We should all practice the platinum equity rule, which is ask people what they need, then choose to give it so they feel respected. We all deserve respect. Aretha Franklin sang it best. RESPECT, find out what it means to me. I love this quote from Maya Angelou. She says, I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And this is when inclusion comes in. Inclusion is the practice it takes to create a positive work environment where the differences of every team member is recognized, understood, and valued. Inclusion is about building trust within our working relationships. One attempt isn't going to automatically change everything, and it's not always easy because we don't automatically know what everyone needs or how people prefer to engage. Inclusion takes time and practice. The key is we need to be curious, ask, listen, and invite the people you serve to provide input. Don't just ask for their feedback after the project is said and done. Give everyone involved a voice and a seat at the table. When we practice inclusion, it lifts morale. Retention increases because people like coming to work. When people feel valued and heard, they're innovative, which inspires collaboration within teams, and DCA becomes a destination employer. Simon Sinek believes the role of a leader is not to come up with all the great ideas. The role of a leader is to create an environment in which great ideas can happen. How can we create inclusive engagement? Hold meetings regularly, then give people options for how to communicate and provide input. In work groups, extroverts tend to speak up and sometimes dominate conversations. If an introvert or analytical person who needs a little more time to problem solve isn't given an opportunity, great ideas and insight can be lost. Groupthink, also known as conformity bias, can quickly contaminate a group when everyone's voice isn't heard and understood. When a special assignment or project is given, make sure the goals and expectations are clear. Give everyone on the team an opportunity to learn and grow from a special assignment. Create a mentoring opportunity by pairing someone more experienced with someone who's new to the project. This knowledge transfer is ideal for succession planning. There is a DEI section in the Strategic Planning Environmental Scan. It will centralize input on DEI matters and contain demographic information collected. This section can help further inform the board as it considers impacts of policy decision. Our mission is to provide outstanding support services, oversight, and innovative solutions to boards and bureaus that regulate California professionals and vocations so that through this partnership, all Californians are informed, empowered, and protected. Our vision, together protecting California consumers. Our values, accountability, communication, diversity, employees, integrity, leadership, service, and transparency. As a board, you should ensure that your mission, vision, and values supports change and evolves to meet the needs of all Californians. We want all Californians to feel accepted in seeking services we provide. As board members, you are the leaders of the industry you regulate. In this next section, we will discuss actionable areas to incorporate DEI in 4 areas: policy, licensing, enforcement, and outreach. In policy, we need to ask ourselves if the decisions we are considering will lead to the success of everyone involved. Reflect on who will benefit from or be burdened by the proposal or decision being considered. Are the needs of one demographic different from another geographic group? Think equity. What data or metrics will you use to evaluate the impacts of your decisions? Leverage methods that increase public input and engagement, such as workshops, surveys, and multilingual communications. Actively engage with diverse and underserved communities. Reach out to associations, colleges, interested parties, other licensing or regulatory bodies. Utilize the strategic planning process. Review information collected through the new environmental scans, which incorporate DEI questions. In licensing, when licensees reflect communities they serve, it expands access to all. Use plain language. Simplify communication so it's easy to understand and complete. Expand multilingual resources for applicants and consumers. Consider additional pathways to gain experience and/or education for licensure. Expand outreach for subject matter experts to ensure the exam development process is inclusive. When it comes to enforcement, drive fair outcomes and protect the vulnerable. Review enforcement data and trends. Update enforcement policies, processes, and procedures to mitigate unintended consequences to impacted populations through increased engagement with consumers, stakeholders, and communities. When you build your team, consider the needs of all the communities we serve. Do you need more bilingual staff? Do you need additional staff in certain areas of the state? Expand your outreach through HR, job fairs, and inquire about other opportunities you may not have considered before. As you begin to integrate DEI, remember you can't take the bias from the person, but you can remove the bias from the process. Through outreach, you can increase access and opportunity when you reach and meet people where they're at. Do you know what the second most common language in California is? Spanish. So when you translate resource materials based on the people you serve, you expand language access. Develop multilingual communications for social media posts, applications, forms, and other resources you provide. Publish written and video testimonials from your diverse consumers, which reflect their age, race, gender, and cultural differences. As you begin to integrate DEI, remember to leverage all the resources available to you at DCA. The Equal Employment Opportunity Office administers the American Sign Language and Real-Time Captioning Services contract. The EEO office conducts the department-wide language survey to identify the public it serves, the languages spoken, and the bilingual resources available at DCA to ensure equal access is provided for all consumers. The Consumer Information Center administers a contract that provides phone language services to consumers in over 200 languages. The Office of Human Resources administers the bilingual pay program, including the establishment of bilingual positions. The Office of Publications, Design, and Editing coordinates requests for the translation of written materials. The Solid Training and Planning Solutions offers DEI-related trainings, surveys, meeting facilitation, and development of strategic plans. The Office of Professional Examination Services offers examination translation and adaptation services. I want to share one of the many examples of how the Board of Barbering and Cosmetology has integrated DEI.
The California Board of Barbering and Cosmetology celebrates the ever-changing diversity of California's consumers and licensees, so we can establish a quorum, which is why the board has made a concerted effort to expand on its language accessibility. Here are some of our achievements. Upon request, each individual that visits the board in person is given the opportunity to access an interpreter via the language line phone service if the individual does not feel they are able to effectively communicate with board staff. Let's take a look.
Good morning. How can I help you?
Tôi không nói tiếng Anh.
Okay. Is there another language that you prefer? Do you see one on this list?
Tôi nói tiếng Việt.
Okay.
A unit within the Department of Consumer Affairs called the Consumer Information Center, or CIC, provides phone agents who assist consumers and licensees in English, Spanish, and more than 240 other languages with the assistance of a third-party vendor via the toll-free number 1-800-952-5210. Phone agents usually serve as the public's first point of contact. They provide many services to both consumers and licensees. CIC phone agents answer nearly 1 million calls per year. The board provides 3 additional language access pages in Spanish, Vietnamese, and Korean languages on its website, www.barbercosmo.ca.gov. The English homepage has the option for Google Translate. Almost every publication, form, bulletin, and trifold the board provides is translated into Spanish, Vietnamese, and Korean. Items such as the self-inspection worksheet and the What to Expect When You're Inspected trifold are available in these languages. Select videos such as foot spa cleaning and disinfecting have been translated into the Vietnamese language and posted to the board's website.
Hi, my name is Kyle with the State Board. I'm here doing inspection.
When inspecting salons with Vietnamese-speaking individuals where violations have been found, inspectors utilize a translated violation cover sheet, which contains a simplified, translated explanation of select common violations. Citations that are issued to nail salons are provided in both the English and Vietnamese languages to the establishment owner. Board inspectors, exam site staff, and headquarters staff receive updated, specialized training on how to utilize an interpreter via the language line phone service to address language access situations found in their respective job roles. Interpreters are provided free of charge to petitioners in disciplinary review hearings upon request, so that each licensee can fully understand their hearing and the additional information provided at the hearing. The California Board of Barbering and Cosmetology is dedicated to providing all individuals with meaningful access to the board's services, programs, and activities. We are working hard to expand our language access, and will continue to do so.
When we think about DEI, remember diversity is a fact, equity is a choice, inclusion is an action, and the outcome is belonging. UC Berkeley's Others and Belonging Institute states, belonging describes values and practices where no person is left out of the circle of concern. Belonging means more than having just access. It means having a meaningful voice and the opportunity to participate. We need to make sure our efforts aren't just transactional. They need to be transformative, and it will take time. So remember, DEI is a journey, not a destination.
All right, and we have one more from our DCA director. This one's much shorter.
In 2022, Governor Newsom issued an executive order directing state agencies and departments to build upon the state's efforts to advance equity by taking new concrete actions to address disparities and expand opportunity for all Californians. The governor's executive order builds upon and strengthens the state's commitment to a California for all. We all have an important role in this effort. As you develop your board's strategic plan, building in and embedding diversity, equity, and inclusion into the goals and objectives is one of the most effective ways we can make progress and produce results with long-lasting impacts. The work that the boards and bureaus do touches the lives of every Californian. That is why it is so important to take into account every Californian when building out the board's mission, vision, values, and goals. The department's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Steering Committee and the SOLID team are available as a resource to help you in meeting those goals. Thank you for being a part of making our department a diverse, equitable, and inclusive California Department of Consumer Affairs for all.
All right. So just to kind of briefly brush up on strategic planning. Strategic planning answers a couple questions: the where are we now, where are we going, how will we get there? Your strategic plan was made back in 2022. And what we're doing today is just adding a little bit edits to it to kind of make it diverse, equitable, and inclusive. Like you heard in the videos, we're doing this because the governor had an executive order in 1622 requiring that we include equity analysis into strategic plans. We're also adding this to consider all individuals when creating our objectives and also creating pathways to equal outcomes. All right, so this is the roadmap for strategic planning for the DI. Where normally for these normal supplements, we usually are at the planning session, but today we are at the finalized plan. So we're taking staff's recommendations on what to add to the strategic plan, and you're gonna review and we'll finalize those edits and then hopefully approve. And then after that, I will work with the staff to do action planning with, which is where for any of those objectives where we edited them or we added new ones, we'll create steps on, okay, what do we need to do in order to achieve these new objectives, or what else do we need to add to our current action plan to meet the new things that we added. All right, and then you should have got the environmental scan to look at in your board meeting materials, and just kind of a reminder of what that is. The environmental scan kind of tells you how your stakeholders felt about the board for all of those questions. It's also a response to the industry or profession that the board operates in. So everyone was asked for questions, and those DEI questions asked about different perspectives, about ideas and priorities, any unnecessary requirements or barriers to licensure, outreach and connection to all Californians, and how to further equal access to opportunities. And then if you can see the slide, this was your participation levels, which are really good for some of the DEI supplements. You had 843 external stakeholders respond, and you have a total of 861 people respond to this survey. All right, and then back last year, what we did is we actually did like a mini strategic planning session with staff where we came up with those objectives to add to the strategic plan. And so that's what we're going to be kind of looking at today. And then just as a reminder, the strategic direction of the board is shaped by everyone here today. As a reminder, consumer protection is your mandate. And then staff are going to be responsible for implementing those new objectives or any new edits that we add. So as we are, making edits or if we're approving them, be mindful of staff's time and resources, especially because the strategic plan does expire in 2026. That's next year. Oh, it is 8. Okay, my apologies. Okay, well, you got a couple extra years to add to that. But still, we do want to be mindful of staff's time in those extra years. All right. So for your resources, we're going to be using your expertise, that environmental scan that you got, and also the workbook if you were able to fill that out ahead of time. If not, totally okay. And we are going to review those edits. So at this point, I am going to share my screen, and we're going to look at the edits to the mission, vision, and values. I'm going to pass this over to Elizabeth so she can scribe. Oh, here's the mouse. There you go. Okay. All right. So staff suggested for the mission statement that we add the word equitable in front of education and add the word.
Would you mind making that a little bit bigger?
Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you.
Is that better? Perfect. Okay. And then we also added the word fair before regulation. Do we like these changes? Do we feel like something else should be made to them?
Do you guys want me to read the mission statement? Or are you okay? Okay.
Okay, apologies.
Found it?
We found it.
No worries.
Adding equitable and fair. Yeah.
Your mic. Yeah, I don't think we have any objections to that.
Okay, in that case, we'll go ahead and accept those. And then no changes to the vision statement or the values, but at this time we could if you feel there are changes needed. Looks good. All right.
No, I don't think so.
Perfect. All right, in that case, we'll go to our first goal area. So for the goal area description, we have the board sets standards to ensure excellence in practice and public safety while promoting fairness, accessibility, and inclusiveness.
You guys, explain it again. You guys have sat down already with the staff.
Correct.
Come up with this, correct?
Correct.
Okay, you're just, if we need a change, like we need to give a final approval.
Yeah.
Is basically what you're looking.
Yeah, typically we would do a session with the board members also. However, unfortunately, this one got pushed out so far. And we felt that we wanted to give you the yeah, otherwise you'd have to wait till your next meeting to approve.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think you guys are the experts at it. So I mean, if this is what's needed, to be put in there, I mean, I don't know if I have much input after just watching the 20-minute video on it and being like, oh no, you guys should reword it to this if you guys already have sat down. So I guess you're just looking if there's anything that we're saying, no, we don't want that in there.
I think the only,
We're approving it.
yeah, the only item that I would suggest maybe a change is instead of saying maybe promoting fairness, I think down below we talk about ensuring fairness and consistency. I guess just to make it a little bit more active in terms of we're not going to only be promoting fairness, accessibility, and inclusivity, you know, but it's really about the goal is to be actionable in that, right? And to like implement a fair, accessible, and inclusive.
So rather than promoting, maybe ensuring, and we can change that first ensure to promoting, maybe swap those two words? Would that?
I mean, I think we can keep the second ensure too, but I just
Okay.
think the first one maybe while ensuring fairness, accessibility, and inclusiveness rather than just promoting it.
If we go back to like the ensuring, I mean, and promoting it, ensuring, I don't know, if you can get like a lot of different variations. So you didn't do this, another person, you didn't do this, or we're going to promote, by accessibility. I don't know how we can ensure everything to everybody's definition unless it's clearly defined, which
You're
is a
saying-
lot of work.
We should keep it promoting, like,
Yeah.
we promote it, we can't ensure it.
Yeah,
but
well,
we're
because
gonna
my
promote it.
ensuring
Yeah,
is
no, I
different
know.
than
Okay.
someone else's, perhaps. I don't know. It's my thought.
So in that case, change it back to promoting.
Based off what Scott said, yeah, I would say, yeah. I like what Scott said. I mean, I get what,
Yeah, I was just
Same,
trying to
some
make it
saying,
a little bit
but-
more or less than we're just champions of it, but
yeah, but
That's
how
fine.
can we?
I mean, well, we can't ensure, but we could say like while, you know, something along the lines of like, while aiming to ensure fairness, accessibility, and inclusiveness.
Or you could say something like, while being conscious of fairness, accessibility, and inclusiveness.
Yeah, while being conscious or while promoting. I'm fine with how it is. so-
Or, I mean, if we could say maybe just while championing fairness, accessibility, and inclusiveness.
Okay.
I just think maybe that gives it a little
Championing's
bit
good.
more, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Otherwise, that looks good.
All right. In that case, we'll move on to objective 1.1. We added one word, which was the word accessibility. So this is implement the Connect system to improve transparency, accessibility, and efficiency of the examination and licensing processes.
Yeah, everything on this page looks good to me. I don't know if anybody else has any additions on that page.
Okay. And then there is one additional objective that staff added. I just want to confirm that that one is good also.
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. In that case, we will move on to next goal area. I'll pass this over to Elizabeth.
Same drill for enforcement. The statement itself had one new word, add all in front of consumers. How do you feel about that addition?
Yep.
Okay. And do you have any additional edits you would like to suggest? Anything that considers diversity, equity, and inclusion? That's what we're looking for today.
I mean, can you, like, on 2.4?
Yeah.
On 2.4, like, an example of, on enforcement accessibility. I mean, because I like the statement, implement the Connect system to improve transparency and efficiency of the enforcement process. So accessibility, we're throwing that word in there. We're specifically giving an action item, I guess, that accessibility, now it's going to be in different languages.
That could be one, yeah. That could be
Okay,
something
is
that
that
that falls under accessibility. It could be that we have our, I don't know, different paths to filing a complaint, not just going online or, I don't know, taking into consideration ADA or You want to elaborate?
It's kind of similar vein of accessibility could like an actual item under there could be people being able to access that online through the Connect system rather than just the website. They could also follow up on their complaint cases if they submit and they decide that they want to follow up on it. That way they kind of track on how it's going. Because a lot of times I know for people who submit complaints, they will say like, I never hear anything back. So having it in having the enforcement processes in the Connect system, they could then be able to, track their cases and see where it is in the process.
And that will all be defined after we establish these, then the action items come
We
from
go-
there, right?
Yeah, we'll work on that with staff. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, I mean, I guess my overall thought playing devil's advocate is that like at what point, again, these are just words and I think these are all needed, but it's, hey, I have a complaint to make. I don't have a computer. I don't have internet. I need an enforcement agent to come to my house and I don't have pen and paper. I don't have the money for that. So if they're coming to my house and they need to write the complaint for me because I'm actually illiterate and right, like, I don't know, where do you draw the line of like, hey, we're going to be accessible to like every single thing that you need. And so I just, I want to put these things in here. It sounds great. I'm all like, just.
Yeah.
I think
there's a
that's where
line. Yeah.
this one in particular is talking specifically about the Connect system.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
No, I get it. Again, I think it's just as a general, it's like, we can't, like what you said, we can't ensure it to every single person, every single thing, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Behind all of
Yeah,
this
but
should
I
be a
think-
concept of it has to be reasonable too.
Right.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And
But I think what you were saying is that when we get a little bit more granular is when we're done with these goals, then at the staff level, when we start to figure out, okay, so what does accessibility?
what are
look
the
like?
individual steps underneath
What are those
it?
specific
Yeah.
steps? Then that's where we have to
Correct.
get a little bit more defined in terms of that.
And then, kind of like you mentioned earlier, this objective is specifically about the Connect system. And it is just, it's to improve. So you're not really ensuring anything, but you are trying to improve.
But to your point, Kyle, do you feel like maybe
Needs to
there's
be
something
reasonable.
missing there in terms of?
No.
like,
Okay. Yeah, I guess I was just saying an
Yeah.
overall comment
Yeah.
of DEI and like where you can draw a line on it and stuff. So, yeah.
Are we
I'm
all
good with
okay
everything
on
goal two.
number 2?
Yeah.
Yep.
You guys are good with the new one
Enforcement
as
is
well,
all good.
2.5?
Yep.
Okay.
And any edits? When you see the new words, it's easy to get caught up and it seems like it's just wordsmithing. So I encourage you to look at the objectives themselves and think of, is there anything that we're missing or any DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion concepts that we can add to it or that should be added to it, like that was missed in the original objective?
We can go to goal 3.
Oh, you're ready? Okay. Okay, there's the statement.
Can I make a comment or question? Or,
Yes.
In goal, you're on 3. In that sentence, you do the parentheses DEI, but you don't do it in other places. I would suggest maybe being consistent throughout.
Got it.
Like goal 5 doesn't have it and, there's a few other places. So maybe do it in the very beginning and then use DEA. DEA.
We will
Yeah.
double check that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any edits or do you accept the change to the statement itself?
It's fine.
I mean, what did it say? Did it end with while promoting? How did it end before? It looks like, I don't see anything like crossed off. The board pursues statutes, regulation, policies, and procedures that strengthen and support its mandate and mission was while promoting not there before?
I think while promoting might be new. Do you guys have
I'm
the?
just wondering how it did.
Mm-hmm.
Like while promoting fairness.
We're pulling it up at this moment. That is school area 3. Yes, while promoting is new, so it just ended at mission.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the last one, 3.6, remind me, so what does that look like in terms of our process, like incorporating equity analysis and considerations? How does that look like in our process right now?
I think, unless Sarah, but I think that would be a question to the board.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I have to add is, basically, part of it is this DI supplemental right now. But Sophia might be able to answer on this one, for 3.6.
So I was just wondering if it speaks to incorporating equity analysis and considerations in the board's decision-making. So just what does that look like in terms of like our,
Yeah, how is it?
like, how is that implemented?
Did this so long ago? That's a good question. I'm not sure if this was a recommendation from Solid, or was this one that other boards were including?
I don't recall this being often an objective for other boards. Sarah's pulling up the PowerPoint of that session with staff. What I'm thinking it means is just making sure that as you're making your decisions and you're developing policies or adhering to policies, that you consider DEI, like having that lens.
Can I suggest that we add where appropriate? So incorporate equity analysis and considerations in the board's decision-making where appropriate. Yeah.
Sure. We added that. I think Sarah was going to give us some insight.
Yeah. I pulled up the PowerPoint session from when we worked with staff, and the brainstorm version that we had there, so not defined or anything, was incorporate DI rulemaking and policies by engaging diverse stakeholders in the regulatory process.
Say that again?
Say that one more time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Incorporate DEI rulemaking and policies by engaging diverse stakeholders in the regulatory process.
I don't think that's, that doesn't sound like it connects to what we're talking about
Yeah.
here. But are we okay with
But
just saying?
Considering DEI when making rulemaking and policies?
Yeah. I mean,
Taking
'cause when I
DEI
think
into.
The picture of the slide, right? It was like the different
Yeah.
slide or the different stools so people could see. I mean, we have to protect the public and you can't, I mean, if.
Are
I
we,
don't know, you just
are
can't-
we okay with just modifying with where
Yeah.
appropriate?
Or just.
Yeah, and consider, I think, instead of incorporate.
Yeah, I was just wondering if the equity analysis was like a specific process or something that we're saying. But if it's just the lens, then I think which we, I think already sort of.
This could be more of an internal, policy decision-making, I'm not sure. I think that what we wanted, maybe the area we were talking about was just incorporating DEI when it comes to making decisions on, board policy.
I think maybe we say consider DEI in the board's decision-making where appropriate.
How do you all feel about that?
I'm good with that.
Okay, so consider DEI
In the board's decision-making.
making where appropriate. Yeah.
Fine with me.
That's,
Okay. Then on
That makes much more sense.
I could just, I mean, agreed with your concern, Yesenia, because I can view this as being like every single staff.
Have an
report now
analysis
has to
or
have a-
something,
a
or-
paragraph.
I would have been,
Yeah.
yeah, we would have struggled with the action items on that, probably. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then what is 3.5 look? I mean, the act is the act. I mean, we've gone through a couple of things of just changing a few things in the act itself. Looking at the language in the act to improve and address barriers to diversity, equity, and inclusion. What's unclear about the act? I mean, it's, your fee is X amount. Your renewal date is X date. What is the language in the act that will take forever to review?
One thing that comes to the top of my mind right now is all of our examinations are only given in English. And I think there is something in our act that says, you know, and it's also in the federal standard, I believe, that licensees need to be able to read and understand the labels in English. So that's an area that I've wanted to look into a little more, to see, you know, get an analysis, work with legal on what exactly does that mean? And does that prevent us from, you know, can we make changes in the future so that we can offer our examination in other languages? So those would be changes that need to be made in the act.
Okay.
That's off the top of my head, one thing I can think of. But again, I got to work closely with legal because I don't know, you know, if we currently can or if we actually need to make changes.
I just didn't know how deep down
Yeah.
we're going to go.
And I think I like the way you word it as review and revise as necessary, right? So there might be very minimal changes or there
maybe
might be
none.
extensive or none, so.
But at least we've looked at it, we've done what we can and.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the wording for 3.5 is good? Yeah.
Yeah.
Any edits to the other objectives? No? No additional objectives you would like to add? No? Okay. Move on to goal 4.
All right, so there we go. Outreach and communication. We added inclusively communicates its mission, vision, and goals to all stakeholders, ensuring equitable access to information. How do we feel about these edits to the goal area description?
I just have the same issue with ensuring
Yeah.
and also
Yeah.
thinking about Kyle's like equitable access to information. I mean, how far do you take that?
Yeah.
I mean-
Do we want to change ensuring to promoting again?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder if we, instead of, sorry, this might be just minor, but I wonder if instead of promoting, because we don't want to, I mean, we're not promoting the equitable access, but maybe just striving. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know,
I mean,
just
Just avoiding
striving,
ensuring.
like versus like we're
equitable access
Yeah.
to information.
because that way, yeah, we can't ensure it, but we'll strive for equitable access versus just promoting it.
And then I believe this one, we didn't have too many changes to the actual objectives, but we did have 3 additional ones.
I have a really minor comment.
Sure, go ahead. Oh, I think you need your mic.
I was just thinking that.
Can we just combine 4.9 and 4.10 to one? So it says promote and regularly update two-way communication with the pest control industry.
Sure. And then we'll delete 10.2. Woo! All right. So now we only have 2 additions. How do we look like those?
Do we want to say the bottom? And I'm trying to make sure I'm not missing it, but So the bottom says improve online content to reflect and respect diverse cultural perspectives. Do we want to just say content? Because I think about, like, for instance, I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Like print brochures, like materials that we have, like we would want those to reflect as well.
Online.
Okay.
I mean, does that mean that, I don't know, I go to the, in respect diverse cultural perspectives, like, oh, now it's hard to get content out. We need to get content out, but man, it's gonna have to go through this whole entire process. And are we respecting all the diverse cultures to be able to get this? Now we can't even, we're not even getting content out because we're tied up by, I guess I would love to know like an example.
Maybe we say improve content to better reflect and respect diverse cultural perspectives.
We just remove cultural and just say diverse perspectives. What I'm worried about is like sometimes you can get bogged down and all of a sudden we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
8 different ways to incorporate everything when it's unwieldy.
Improve content to better reflect and respect diverse perspectives.
So add
To better, yeah.
Yes.
And remove.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any other edits for goal 4?
I think we're good on
Yeah.
4.
Okay, ready to move on? All right, we'll go to goal 5, organizational effectiveness. We added while promoting diversity, equity, inclusion here.
I mean, I feel like it's kind of like a blanket statement almost.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, why not write down every single line item while promoting diversity, equity, inclusion is how I feel. Like, oh, we were told to do this. We're just going to throw this at the end of the sentence. I don't know if there's a better way. I mean, while being fair, or I mean, like, how do you? Is it like?
It's also one of the
Values.
for the entire.
Oh, Mike.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's listed at the front as well as one of our values.
So we're just, okay, and so we're just kind of reiterating it on different line items.
I felt like that's what we were doing while we were going through this process. But
I would also read,
I don't think it hurts.
using goal 5 as an example, the goal statement includes while promoting diversity, equity, inclusion. So I view it, everything below that as being incorporated into that. So we don't have to say DEI with
That we don't say, yeah.
Are you okay with leaving
Yeah,
that
yeah, I'm
on
good
5?
with it all.
Okay.
I'm good with it all.
Okay.
I guess there was more questions and.
Goal 5?
Just one second. Sorry.
And do we?
Is there something in here, I guess just going back to also what was highlighted in the video too, in terms of do we have any needs in terms of staffing levels of like that, we need to, like, are there gaps in terms of languages or barriers or things like that that need to be identified? There may not be, but I don't know if that's part of something like that too, that we need to add to it as well, Sophia?
We have staffing levels in 5.1.
Right, I just mean more in terms of like, any, from an accessibility standpoint, right? Like, is there anything that we need to add to that? So continue to monitor and adjust if necessary, both like the staffing levels, but also like whether it be, I guess the only thing that I can think of is languages right now, but like any language barriers that are needed, and there may
I
not be,
see.
but I'm just asking, like there, you know, if there's anything that we need to share there, like identify, and we can, and that could even be part of it. It's just more identify if there is any need for that. Any need for additional skill, like.
There's already a process in place that identifies whether, if we need, for example, more bilingual employees. They have a language survey that's done every year. And the results of that show whether or not we meet that percentage threshold. Because that's already in place. I mean, is that something?
Yeah, we might not need to explicitly call it out then.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was going to mention that that could probably be an action item step under this goal area is to identify if there's bilingual needs.
Perfect. In that case, I don't have anything else.
And then we're fine with that addition, the increase, the welcoming and inclusive work environment of the board.
Sure. We're already welcome and inclusive.
Good.
We'll continue to increase it.
All right, in that case, that is everything. Let me go back to the PowerPoint real quick. Also gonna hit save on that, so we make sure we have all these edits saved. Okay. All right, so we have, this is now only 6 objectives, and your plan does go till 2028. I did have it right on the slide. I had it wrong in my head. With those 6 additions to the strategic plan, do you feel like you need to extend your strategic plan out more, or are we still good with that 2028 timeline?
Yeah.
I think we're good.
Okay, perfect. All right. So next steps, hopefully you'll approve the plan today with non-substantial edits. And then we will work with staff to add additional steps to the action plan that we created. And yeah, that is it.
Thank you. Excuse me. So I'll ask the board for a motion to approve the SPCB DEI supplemental strategic plan.
As amended today.
As amended today.
Second.
She's asking.
I'm sorry. Oh, so moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right. And does the board have any final questions, comments before we move forward to asking our public? Moderator, would you mind opening up our comments to see if our public have any comments or questions on this motion?
Thank you, Madam President. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on this agenda item, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We will give you a moment. All right, I see no request for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Okay, it has been moved and second to approve the SPCB DEI supplemental strategic plan. Sophia, can you call for a roll call?
Yes.
Well,
Board President Anderson.
yes.
Vice President Finley.
Yes.
Board Member Paxson.
Yes.
Board Member Mendenhall.
Yes.
And Board Member Bindal.
Yes.
We have a 5-0 vote. Motion passes.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you both. We really appreciate it. All right, so agenda item 19, upcoming board meeting dates. These dates have already been reviewed and approved by all board members. They are Wednesday, June 25th, 2025, and then Wednesday, October 1st, 2025. Moderator, can you open and see if our public may have any comments?
That's fine.
Okay, seeing no comments, we're going to go ahead and go to, let's see, any public comment that is not on the agenda. Moderator, could we open it up to see if there's any comments or questions on items that have not been put forth by the agenda? Did we lose my buddy? Hello? All right. Moderator, can you hear me?
Trisha, are you there? And I can't.
Do we still have members of the public on?
This is the moderator, and excuse me, I don't know if it's the storm or what, but my audio had cut out, but yes, we do. Did you need to call for public comment?
Yes, just for items that are not on the agenda, please.
Okay, we will do that. All right, so if any member of the public would like to comment on items not on the agenda, please raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. And item number 21 are future agenda items. And just wanted to ask the board if there are any specific items that you would like to see in future agenda, in our future agendas that we would like to discuss at this point in time? No? Okay.
Yeah, I would just say, just going, I think it's going to be addressed, but just going back to increasing the fees and needing more income, I just want to be clear, like, I totally support the increase of fees. It was just more of, I would love to be able to see a report that shows, percentage of income to the structural pest control from branch 1, 2, and 3, percentage of time spent from the board on branches 1, 2, and 3, and percent, like.
Yeah,
To have that would be awesome, to have it be an agenda item.
Send it to you. We actually already have that. And I think it was the meeting, I think you actually, you missed that meeting, I think. We presented it when we first presented this package breakdown, but I will definitely send that to you so that you can have that breakdown on what our current revenue is for those, for the licensing and versus the WDO. And why, I would love to be able to just say, let's just increase the licensing fees, but why we were, budget office really pushed and said, we need to increase this as well.
Okay.
The WDO as well, in order to meet that revenue that we need to get us to that 6-month reserve threshold that they,
Yes.
for unexpected things that come up.
Yeah, no, it was just clarifying. I felt like based off the numbers I was seeing was 80% of the revenue from the board was off the WDO.
It is.
It's supporting branch 1, 2, and 3, and here it is like branch 3 paying for 80%. And it was just kind of understanding all that.
It is, and
future agenda item if we don't have the reports.
Yeah, and I think, the reports, I have the reports, I can send that to you, the numbers. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'll send that to you. Yeah.
We don't need to go into that. Thank you.
Moderator, can we ask if the public have any comments on any future agenda items?
Thank you so much. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on future agenda items, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, I see no requests for comment. Madam President, I return the floor back to you.
Perfect. Okay, it is 4:29 and this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all.